Welcome to Chalk and Code.
where the science of learning meets modern technology.
We're bringing together entrepreneurs, product leaders, researchers, and advocates
To spark ideas, challenge assumptions, and shape the future of learning. Well, listeners, welcome again to Chalk and Code, where we explore new and novel directions in education, technology, and leadership. We are joined today by Dr. Johannes Ziegler, and he is the CEO of Miaplaza, and we are here most especially to talk about Miacademy. This is a company that, together with his wife Svenja, it was initially founded, I think, in 2004.
Yes, that's correct.
And it focused in the realm of social networking, but there was a moment where they noticed that their own children were naturally drawn to the platform, and they pivoted toward educational content. And this shift was driven, as I understand it, by a desire to reinvent learning in a way that made it more accessible and engaging and highly individualized for the learner.
That is correct. Yes.
Well, we are delighted to have you with us today. If you don't mind, would you start off and just share with our listeners some about your background?
Yes, happy to do that. I grew up in Europe, as you can still hear from my accent. I grew up in Germany. My mom was Swiss, my dad German, and Europe has this opportunity to really go to other countries very easily because it's just a couple of hours right away. And I think that was the first thing that shaped me, having two different nationalities, going to different countries, seeing how people lived in different parts of the world. I then studied engineering. The specific subject was technical cybernetics to the master level, and switched more into the side of business. Worked at McKinsey Management Consulting, pursued a PhD in business, had the opportunity to do my research at Stanford University at the business school, and then continued to work in consulting before I founded the company Miaplaza, which is now mostly known with its main brand, which is Miacademy.
There are, as I understand it, a couple of other products. There's MiaPrep as well.
Yes. So there are interestingly several other products. MiaPrep is the version for 9th through 12th grade. For the longest time, we thought that this is a very tall order to create all the necessary content for high school. And it has been a big effort, but we did it. And we have now MiaPrep for grades 9 through 12. And there's also the opportunity to start already at 7th grade. And we initially actually started in a more playful way. Before we had all that educational content, even for a K through 8, we started with an edutainment platform, which means there's some education, but for the most part, it is actually more playful interaction. And those sites had playful names. The names were chosen by the students themselves. We had one version for girls, actually, which was called Always, still is, Always Ice Cream. The other one, Clever Dragons. It sometimes came to haunt us later, where people said, "How do you dare to call the boys clever and say that girls just eat ice creams?" That's never what we wanted to do. It's just a playful, fun name chosen by our students. But this is how we started in a more playful, fun environment, and then opened Miacademy, which, as the name implies, really has the content so you can use it as the core of our school.
So, as I understand it from reading, the primary audience is a homeschool audience, and then perhaps thereafter, parents and educators who are looking for supplemental content as well. Have I got that right?
That is true. Like, homeschooling is the business we started in, not necessarily because that's that was the strategic big plan. It happened to be that homeschoolers had the biggest need for
Mm.
an engaging platform that they could access at home. And I'm actually very thankful that this became the core business, because homeschooling is a very fast moving, agile environment where people come in for different reasons. People also switch platforms very quickly if you don't deliver the service that they are happy with. They would go to a competitor in a heartbeat. That goes both ways. So we were also able, thankfully, to pick up a lot of customers from our competitors as they're experimenting. You get very quick feedback from parents and from the students. In fact, we get feedback for every single piece of the lesson from our students that they can rate, um, which allowed us to iterate very quickly and figure out what actually is working, and working in the sense that it's engaging and that kids really learn something. Um, Not surprisingly, this material became also known in schools, and so many teachers approach us and say, "Hey, how can we use it in the classroom?" And we're in the process of not only serving this market, which is currently done on a small scale, but also developing the appropriate surrounding software that it's actually easy to use in classrooms.
Mhm.
And there's another exciting product. 3 years ago, we started our online high school, which is different from the homeschool program, that it's actually a school. So to be very clear, if homeschoolers use it, we're not the school. We are the curriculum, we're the program, we're the support. The parents are in charge, and they create the diploma. They're responsible. Uh, if they join our online high school, we're an accredited high school. We have teachers, we have office hours. Our teachers great. We have counselors. We have every support you can think of. And then we actually uh, are the ones who give the diploma at the end, the high school degree.
Oh, wow, okay. I had read that the entire program was accredited. I wondered, if you don't mind, I wanna go back to, um, a question about Miacademy in particular, and about homeschooling, and, um well, really, it's not just homeschooling, but I wanna drill in on this idea that the content is available online. I've got, a couple of questions for you. The f and they kind of go to how the content gets individualized. How do we individualize the experience for the learner? The first question is kind of a framing question. When you think about MiaPrep and Miacademy, uh, is it a product that, when you think about education as a continuum of, products that, maybe on one side exist to support the system itself, like a student information system, or products on the other end of the continuum that are really designed to spark and support the learning, you know, done by the individual. Where do your products really sit in that?
So our product strongly sits on the side of direct access of the individual. The content, which is all the videos that students watch, the exams they take, all the supplemental materials, the activities, it's all produced by us, and that's our core value proposition. So it's the direct interaction with the content itself. So we sit on that end of the spectrum. Having said that, we are in the process of also thinking more and investing more on the system side, and it starts even at home, where we are talking about an individual family with maybe one parent or both parents teaching their children, um, maybe one, two, three children, and they are the support, and the system is everything starting from how can I get access to funds that would allow me to actually be able to finance like the program and in other parts of homeschooling. So we provide information on that. We provide information on exactly where this child stands academically. So the great book, the projection on how long the child will take to finish certain courses, the system of scheduling. We have probably the most sophisticated scheduling system in the homeschooling market, where you can say exactly like, this is how I want to spread this course. I want to spread it over 150 days, and here are my holidays, and I don't work on Fridays, or don't want the child to work on Fridays, and so on and so on. All that scheduling is possible. So we are actually also providing the system of schooling at home uh, to the parent, which is more than just the content that the child sees. And then the next level, of course, is as we go into serving also students in the public school market. There we have to do more, and we're just at the early part of that journey to support the system there. So we're starting. So it's a long-winded way of answering your question. So we squarely started on the direct student interaction side, but now we have to uh, also add functionality on the system side in order to make it accessible to more people.
So I want to I want to follow up on that. I was listening to an interview that you gave last year in June, uh,
Right.
and one of among the things that you talked about during the conversation, you mentioned that one of the key one of the key weaknesses in, say, the school environment or the school system was its ability to individualize the learning for each student. Oh, and when you when you have students engaging with Miacademy or MiaPrep, how do you individualize the content for them in such a way that it is kind of at their level? And how do you determine what their level is so that they don't start off too low or too high with the material?
Yeah. So the key principle, which is not revolutionary, that's what a lot of people are saying, is that uh, really the only approach that makes sense from a child's perspective is the mastery based approach, which means that you move along um, the learning as fast as you master the concepts and the content. I think it's most extreme in math. And I know that because, like, when I was a teenager, I ran my own little tutoring business, and math was one of the subjects with a lot of demand. And um, if you have a classic school system where there's third grade math, fourth grade math, fifth grade math, and so on, two things can happen. Either you happen to be a child or a student that that is very math oriented and easily grabs concepts, then in all likelihood it's going to be pretty easy, and you just move along just fine. But it could be a bit boring, and you're not really challenged a lot. But if you're on the other end of the spectrum, and you need a little more support, or there are phases where you're missing something, um, the class will move on. You will be at the next level, and the next level will require that you actually know the basics from the previous grades, which in many cases students don't. And so now that's basically the end of that math career. From there on, math is a hated subject where because there's some gaps, there's some mastery missing. Um, the student will pretty much never be able to catch up unless there's some private tutoring or some other activity to fill the gaps. And so the mastery approach, where every student can learn at their level, is the starting point. And we can do that because of two parameters where we can individualize. Number one, in every single subject, you can start at whatever level you are, and not where you are supposed to be in terms of your age/grade level.
Mhm.
So if you're very math oriented, you're happy to do seventh grade math as a fourth grader. If that's what you can deal with and what works for you, that's great. Um, if if you're struggling with languages, you can do what maybe would be a fourth grade program at sixth grade. So that's the first piece of individualization, that every subject is uh, based on where you actually stand. The second degree is how long you take for a certain course. Also depends on your uh, ability, motivation, and propensity to get stuff done. So we allow students to either go through course material fast or slower, depending on where they stand. There are initial placement test opportunities where you can find out where you stand, if a certain course is the right one for you or not. So for a course, you can take placement tests and see, is this appropriate or not? If it's too hard, go down one level, or if it's just easy, go up. And um, and then that's the starting point. And this is basically just the philosophy of mastery-based approach that a lot of online programs can offer. In addition to that, we are now investing in going much deeper. So it starts with supplemental activities and materials that we offer that can be used either to go deeper, to do something that is more, quote, interesting, and that deepens the understanding, which is another way of serving students that are motivated and talented in a certain area, rather than just telling them, hey, you can rush through the material, you can kind of quickly go up the levels. No, you can also go deeper. You can do additional activities, think about it from a different angle. Um, so far, most of that is in the hands of the parents, where we offer a number of activities that they can do with a child to go deeper. Uh, More and more of that, we're planning to also have system supported, where the system says, because you are at a certain level and you seem to enjoy this, why don't you try that, and go deeper here. Uh, we also offer that the other way around. So we are creating materials. One example is going back to math, fractions. There's so many students who think they don't understand algebra or calculus. Now, in reality, they just don't know how to do fractions, which happens to be like some part of the process of getting to the result. And so we then offer extra material and say, hey, why don't you kind of go through that set of practices and instructional materials so you close that gap. That's another way of individualizing it. And behind that, I think a big part of the philosophy that we want to preach is, don't just stay in this learn to the test mentality. The reason why that is so bad is that, if you think about it, if you're talented in one area and the goal is to learn to the test, you will spend very little time in that area because it's easy. You already know it. Now you will spend all the time trying to fix your weakness in that area where you're not having a great test score, which leads to, I think, a disastrous result. Number one, that is very frustrating. So most of your time is spent in areas that you're not comfortable spending. So that's like a negative experience, which is negative for motivation, which then downgrades the whole school experience. Instead, what we should do is we should say, spend most of the time in the area that you have a passion for, and where you have talent and you show interest, and then you can become really good at it, because that's what students will need in the future. And nobody cares about a student that graduates who has just passed the bar everywhere. What is important is that students have this edge. They have something they're passionate about. There's something they're good at, something they can drive towards and build a career on, and contribute to society, rather than being this kind of leveled everywhere, passing the minimum bar. Yeah. So that was a very long answer to your question, but I couldn't resist to kind of point out how we think about this question.
Certainly. I'm curious about another example, if you don't mind, about how you support or encourage students when they are interested in a particular area to go deeper into the curriculum. Does that mean that there's like a set of mastery standards that they must meet in order to progress, and then something that is either somehow some kind of threshold that once your system figures out you have exceeded this particular threshold, we're going to offer you this chance. Can you give me like a specific example? I love history, for example, and while I might read widely in world history to get a sense, kind of broadly what goes on, say in the Western Hemisphere or, any other part of the globe. If I was particularly interested in the history of China, or the history of Iraq, and whether or not you have material in those particular areas is not necessarily the point I was driving at, but like, how would that kind of work for a student who had, really particular interests?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a great example. And please, nobody quote me on specific content because I didn't write the curriculum. I've seen
Okay.
large parts of it, but most parts I haven't seen because it's so vast. But let's take this example. I in order to move on to pass, the student would have to uh, pass if it's a homeschool student, a test, which could be a set of multiple choice questions where maybe a text is offered, and there are then some questions around that, how to interpret that. They have to reach a certain level of proficiency. Actually, the parent can decide
Mm,
what proficiency should be reached. Is it 70, 80, 90, or even 100%? And then the student can only move on once that proficiency is there based on that test. And they can redo the tests. Until they reach the right level that is asked of them. So that's kind of the first level. Then we would have material that is also presented to the parent that would say something like, um, uh, write the diary of a student in that historic context who went through this experience that we talk about in our lesson about this historical event. How would that look from that student's perspective? How would that student have experienced it? And uh, we would allow students to move on, of course, if they don't do that. But if they do that, that will be another way for them to engage in this question of so what actually happened, and what did it really mean for people. And if the students are part of our online school, some of those extra activities actually will even become mandatory, and then they will hand in this essay or this diary or whatever they've been writing, and it will be graded with feedback and opportunities to improve on it by our teachers. So
okay.
play that role. In the case of homeschooling, the parent would have to play that role.
I see. So that what we've been discussing in that particular example is kind of an intrinsic motivation. I am motivated by personal interest. How does the application um, engage students and kind of foster motivation? I don't want to say drive motivation because
Yeah.
that's like we're trying to push people, but how does it foster that sense of engagement?
Yeah, there's a whole set of external motivators, extrinsic motivation that we create. And extrinsic motivation has gotten a little bit of a bad rap sometimes because it seems like superficial. You're basically tricking the students into doing some activity, but the student may not learn anything and so on. Um, I think there's actually a place for extrinsic motivation. Uh, just the fact that you can motivate students to do something will often open the path where they start still learning something and becoming more interested in the subject. So in our case, the way this works is with every activity, there is um, a virtual currency reward connected to it, depending on how hard the activity is. And that is really everything: practice, assessments, depending on how well you did on the assessment. Um, Even the activity that I just mentioned, like there is a guide for the parent to say that if your child, like let's say, wrote that diary of the student of talking about this historic event, um, uh, there's a scale where if it was at this level, you give this kind of virtual currency gold, and the parent then gives it to the child. Um, by the way, the parent has even the opportunity to give this currency in as reward for cleaning up the bedroom, but that's another story. So there's like it's very integrated. So now you have that currency, and the currency lets you engage in an entire virtual world where at the core there's a business simulation. Like everybody can design items, everybody has a castle that they can buy furniture and items for. They have the avatar that they can buy clothes and items for and design it, and then they can sell it to each other. Um, there's a whole economy around it. Like, for example, children write newspaper articles, um, and then they can put advertising space in their article, and other kids can buy that. And with that advertising space, those kids can then uh, promote their own shops and become more successful, rise in the rank of the shop owner. So there are all these little competitions, like what are the best shops, what are the most elaborate castles, what are the students who gained the most virtual currency in this month. Uh, those are those extrinsic motivators. And uh, what I like about it is not only that it actually does motivate a lot of students to stay engaged and keep going and do another lesson. It also inherently actually provides a lot of learning. So if you write an article and then have to think about, is this going to be a good article to sell advertising on? That's kind of real life. That is a very adult thinking, if you want, and that's students ease into and think about. Um, the way, how do I promote my little shop? Uh, how can I do that? That is an interesting question. There are business decisions, like they make money in the shop by setting their price of how they want to sell things, and they can also buy machines that reduce the production cost, and so on. So it's like a lot of real life learning that is not just, um, I would say, blunt scoreboards. It goes beyond that in terms of extrinsic motivation.
So you have an in-app economy.
Yep.
How do you monitor if students are providing kind of free form inputs
Mhm.
like articles? How do you monitor for safety and the interactions between the students?
That is a big topic, and it's the reason why typically companies do not offer this, because you have to invest heavily to make that work. And the way we do that is we have a very sizable, don't know the exact number, 15 people or something like that, a moderation team that pretty much around the clock checks everything that students. In a few cases, also checked by parents. Like the students can even submit videos, and there we uh, first ask parents to review the video and tell them what to look out for. And then if the parents okays it, then our moderators watch the video and check if it's safe. Like safe means the kid doesn't disclose their identity, their location, there's nothing inappropriate in the content. There's nothing that could be perceived as threatening. There's a whole lot of criteria of what we have to watch out for with every form of content, and it starts from video to, as you say, free form creation of artwork, to a lot of text in different contexts. Um, so we also use software that checks pretty much every word to see, and every sentence to see if this could be something suspicious in one of those dimensions. We then the software is kind of the pre-processing that flags certain things. If there's some obvious cases, also immediately like makes it prevents it from ever becoming visible, and then it's sent to the moderator team, where we're moderating millions of items a month to make sure that it's safe. And so far, we have been very successful, and we always say, like, uh, there's no 100% guarantee in any for anything, but we are putting all the effort in. And we've been very successful to keep the kids safe. Yes.
Is that something that is also used in MiaPrep, the online school? Does it does that cross
Yeah.
over? It does?
So yes, it is also on used for the high schoolers, even though technically, once kids are above 13, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA, doesn't apply anymore technically, but we still follow the same guidelines. One of the reasons, of course, is that they can also be young high school students, and then we don't want to have to differentiate between how we treat the students. Um, so yes, the same principles are applied there, in also for the high school.
Do you find, when you're monitoring or measuring kids' level of engagement, do you find that they spend, uh, as I'm I'm struggling with how to put the question. What I'm wondering is, are kids allocating their time appropriately between the work that they should be doing and the world building? And is there any kind of
Mm.
threshold at which, you stop them or you encourage them to get back to work? It's always, when you're choosing your avatar and you're dressing your avatar and, that kind of thing, that can be so engaging that you might, spend more time there than on the actual work.
That has become a concern sometimes, and the way we address that is that parents can flip a switch that then asks that kids can only engage within this world once all the schoolwork is done. There's a
Ah,
certain amount of schoolwork that is set for each day. It's actually a very sophisticated program that kind of calculates the pace that the student needs to go on in order to finish at the date that the parent has set that the
mhm,
student should finish. And only and once students have achieved that can they then go into our virtual world if the parents have set that up. Set
I
that.
see.
That is a concern, and we built that in because uh, some parents gave us the feedback that, oh yes, it's very engaging, except for they're not learning anything because they're playing all day. So yes, we are aware that it can be a distraction if you want, but that there's an opportunity to prevent that.
Okay. I would imagine that your primary audience is already heavily engaged with the education of their own children, so they are not using Miacademy as kind of a set it and forget it. They are, I would imagine, monitoring what their kids are, what they're doing, how quickly they're doing it, the level of mastery. So I would imagine that there's kind of a built-in motivation among your audience already, to keep track of that.
So for the most part, that is true. But sometimes life happens, and there are cases, for example, when um, a child is bullied at school, the parent decides to take the child out of school, but the parent also has a full-time job, and could be a single parent, or even if not a single parent, everybody has a full-time job. So um, there are cases where uh, parents rely heavily in the program. And what we always say is that it clearly is much better if the parent can be that teacher that is engaged, that is working with the child, especially when it comes to those extra activities that are not mandatory, to go deeper, and also make sure that the child really is focused on doing the right thing at the right time of the day and so on. Um, But there is a non-trivial part of our membership where the parent just cannot do it. And they still decide that they don't want to send their child to school for various reasons.
Mhm.
And the way we deal with that is that we encourage the parent to interact and engage in the program, but we try to make it work as much as possible that it's still a meaningful experience, even if the parent does not. Uh, and I think the setting I mentioned is an example for that, where uh, if the parent cannot watch over the shoulder of the child and uh, bring the child back to learning, then at least there's the switch that says you cannot play here. Uh, and when I come back at uh, in the evening, I want to see that you've done your schoolwork. So um, we try to support the parent as much as we can.
Right. What kind of measures of success are you tracking with the population of learners who are engaged?
Yeah. So there are different levels. So one level is how many courses do students complete in a school year. And complete means, by definition, successful, at least to some degree, because typically there are settings that wouldn't allow students to move forward if they don't master the test. Um, and so we were monitoring that, and we're glad to see, like, for example, we're monitoring that very extensively for our online high school, where it's particularly important because kids need to graduate on our watch. And we have put a lot of measures in place to support the students so that number keeps going up. And another measure is how successful are the students the in accomplishing every single lesson, which means how many attempts do they take before they can pass it? And then also we look at the qualitative feedback that the students give us. Like for every lesson, or even as a part of the lesson, they can give this feedback, like, was this too easy or too hard? Did you enjoy this lesson? So there's also this kind of subjective feedback on top of what we can measure, like did they pass the exam feedback. So we're looking at all that. And I believe that this is one of the strengths of our company, coming from this homeschooling market, that those are the metrics we care about. If you're a traditional supplier to school districts, there are a lot of other things you have to care about that are not really student success oriented. And that has to do with kind of meeting certain standards, meeting IT requirements for the school, um, and of course having the right relationship with the people who make the purchasing decision in the school, and so on and so on. So they're like, you worry about a whole lot of other things.
Mhm.
Uh, we can really worry about, does the student really learn successfully?
Okay. Now, we have talked a lot about the application itself and how it operates and how it serves learners and parents. I am curious about your your experiences as an entrepreneur. As I mentioned earlier, I was listening to an interview you gave, and I was struck by something that you said. I'm gonna see if I can't get the quote exactly right. I was writing it down on the fly, but you said when it comes to building a business, and I'm paraphrasing that part. Find somebody to start a company with you, and then go on a journey. And you spoke within that context, you were also speaking about building a core team that you could trust, even though their responsibilities might change over time as the company grew. And I wondered if you wouldn't kind of share with us your experiences and what you've learned about building a business, especially given what you shared.
I I totally agree that this is important quote that you have. The team is the constant for the most part. Of course, people can also leave and join and so on, but um, many times you start in a direction, having a certain view of the world, and it turns out that this is not working. Um, and there's another change that we've experienced, and for which it also was great to start with a strong team that would go through all those changes. And that is, the way now I think about it is, when we started the company, we were like an opportunity driven or market opportunity driven company. We saw in 2004, this was pre Facebook and so on, that there is an opportunity to have social networking become a much bigger part of the internet and of society. At that point, there was only LinkedIn that had just started on the business side. There were numerous platforms on the dating world, but there was no kind of general platform like the type of that Facebook would become later. And we saw an enormous opportunity to create value and to build a company in that space. And that opportunity certainly was a big one. Last time I checked, Facebook now has a market cap of $1.5 trillion. So uh, that that was the motivation initially. And over the years, as we matured, and also as that specific opportunity evaporated because Facebook took over that market, um, we turned into a mission-oriented company where the goal was not to go after what is basically the biggest market that is opening up, but the goal was to have the biggest impact. And education is something that for all of us uh, is hugely important. My wife and I, we have 5 kids, and we uh, went with each of those through a different educational journey in different types of schools. Also, they also went to schools sometimes even internationally. Several of my children studied abroad. So this educational journey is something we became very passionate about, and we saw a lot of opportunity to have a big impact. So I think the biggest journey was the one, and the biggest pivot, if you want, was to go from a mindset of market opportunity to a mindset of uh, mission and a mission-driven approach. And the fact that the people we were together were just like good people who shared the mission and went on this turn together, I think was very, very valuable.
So that there's tremendous challenge in building the right culture, the kind of culture that can persist, the kind of culture that can survive changes in leadership. Uh, what about the other challenges that the company has faced? So not just organizational, but now kind of within the market itself. What are you facing over the next 5 to 10 years that look like real challenges?
So the biggest challenge, I believe, is that nobody knows what what new technology will enable in the future, and there could be some completely new and potentially disruptive approach of going about education. Um, in disruptive in the positive sense, we want to be that player, and that we want to be it, but there's no guarantee that we are uh, that player. So we're trying our best. We're keeping our eyes open. Um, I think the challenges are that there's more and more upheaval in the sense that, in spite of all the investment, in spite of all the ed tech and everything that's out there, the average student success in the US and for the most part also worldwide uh, is actually declining.
Mm,
So, objectively seen, uh, the um, level that students end up when they leave high school is going down in terms of literacy, math understanding, science understanding, and that is very frustrating given all those investments that have been made in like trying to improve things. And it's not like there's not a lot of money spent in education, but it doesn't seem to work. Um, and I think that the challenge for society is uh, to turn that around. I think that has to be turned around. There is no future in which it is helpful to have too many, large part of the population not being basically being science illiterate, being math challenged, and also having challenges in communication and language. That is not helpful. I don't believe in a future where AI is just going to do all the work and we don't have to work anymore. I think we will, if anything, we'll have to have a better level of education. That's a societal challenge. The challenge for the company is how can we move in that direction, and at the same time, watch out for others who may do that in a very different, innovative way that could kind of take our business away. And so, as always, we want to be that company, but we have to be alert.
okay. So looking around the corner,
Mhm.
and kind of skating, as they say, skating to where the puck will be,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
Okay. Well, as we wind up, I would love to know that this is a question that we ask every guest, and that is, what should we be talking more about in education and in technology? that we're not talking about?
We should be talking more about the fact that it's unlikely that the same skills that we saw as the core school academic skills in for decades or even centuries will be the same ones that are relevant in the future. And what is interesting is that there's a lot of talk about AI as being this new tool, like in education, where now there's the AI tutor that takes care of everything, and so on. And while I'm sure there's a lot of opportunities, and we'll see a lot of new developments in the next years, I still think that the human centric approach, which is the approach that we take, um, will be very strong. And uh, students guiding the tools, guiding AI will be superior. But what is not talked about enough is that AI and other changes in society will require different skills in the future. And the interesting question is which ones and how do we build those skills? And and to some degree that's not even that new, but I think it's just an accelerating trend. Like for example, when I went to school or even was at college, uh, the business that I am running now would not have been possible because the internet wasn't there in
Mm.
that form. And so that has changed a lot. I believe that AI and other technologies will bring changes that are much bigger than that. And what we need students who have this agility, mental flexibility to adjust to new situations, who have true critical thinking that allows them to evaluate what is presented very confidently um, about where this is coming from. I believe we need students who have had a lot of exposure to different ways of thinking, different worldviews, different cultures. So in tomorrow's world, they can take that knowledge to also better understand where things are coming from, what opportunities are out there. Um, we we need students who have very strong interpersonal skills because the jobs of the future will place a premium on that, while a lot of the traditional quote work is, including a lot of white collar work, is going to be automated. Uh, the difference will then be, can you actually still lead a team and motivate people, have those interpersonal skills, the communication skills? Um, so those are the things that students need to learn, and there are certainly many more, and it's very hard to say which of those are the most important ones. But uh, I'm sometimes a little bit worried when I hear people about like this talk like this Back to the Future thing, where, well, if students just were able to have a higher level of literacy again and understood their arithmetic, math better, that would be helpful. Yes, it would be helpful, but I don't think that's not gonna be enough.
Mm.
Um, we cannot just go back and say, because our students have lost some ground in traditional skills, that now we're thinking about how we gain that ground again.
Mhm.
I think we need to think much bigger in terms of what do students really need in the future? How can we prepare students for that? How we can retrain those skills and make sure that students are then in a position where they can live fulfilling and productive lives at a time when different skills are going to be needed.
I hear you saying in part that rather than, in addition to focusing on returning student skills to the level that we think they once were at, that we also need to figure out how to accelerate them and grow beyond that. So it's not just a matter of making it back to the starting line or back to the mark, but exceeding the mark and pushing past to prepare for the future. That's a really great point. Um, Johannes, if our listeners wanted to reach out and contact you, if they wanted to get a hold of you or learn more about Miacademy, where would they go?
I think the best place is probably LinkedIn, where I'm present, our company is present, Miaplaza. If anybody engages with our website, we have amazing live chat customer support, where students can all or parents in that case, people are interested in contacting us can reach out and ask questions. For me personally, LinkedIn is probably the best channel.
Okay. Well, listeners, thank you for joining us again today for this latest episode of Chalk and Code. And I hope that something that we talked about today sparked an idea for you and gave you some ideas of your own that you can pursue into the future. Thank you, Dr. Ziegler, for joining us. It was a great pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for tuning in. If today's conversation sparked new insights or challenged your thinking, we'd love to hear from you.
Visit flexion.us for more information and join us here next time on Chalk and Code.